Shalom, peace, welcome, how you doing? So today I'd like to talk about the value of just doing something, like just jumping right in, like there's a pool and just leaping forward rather than not diving because you might smash your head, but just starting to put your toes right in, starting to get in the water, just taking off, right? Because you got to get in the water to feel the weather. You got to start moving to have the flow take you through. The wind will help carry you if you put your sails up. Okay, so let's start this with Aristotle, who said, everything is a matter of habit, and therefore excellence is not act, but a measure of habit. And you can see this because basically anybody who's excellent at anything, they're not just excellent, they're not just born like a baby genius, like some film might have you believe. No, they train for it. They practice to become the best, whether it's an elite athlete or an elite academic, or in the case that we're talking more about, if you want to become great at your craft, in your artistry, become the best artist that you can be, whatever field that is. So we need to do it, and only by doing it do we get better, whatever the it is. But also, we get held back by this notion of perfection. We'll never reach absolute perfection because there'll always be haters and critics. They'll always be able to tear us down. So this is not something that we should absolutely strive for, because in the eyes of all human beings, it's unachievable. If we want to take things again to this kind of extreme notion, even the man who was seen to be the most perfect, JC, Jesus Christ, he has these critics and haters. And he was killed for it as well, right? And then again, so were other great individuals like Socrates, right? Made to drink poison, right? And how many great people have we also seen who have been assassinated? It's almost achieving a level of perfection is not going to get you any kind of immunity, so we might as well just always try to get better. And this is what some philosophers call the good enough principle. Why should we just take action? The why is to get the momentum, to progress, to move forward. So this notion of getting the breeze to take us, going with the flow. There is the notion that we'll be in flow as a kind of perfect state of being, not achieving perfection, but feeling that perfection in the moment that will take us, that will make us move forward with a feeling of flow. All these other ways of describing that in different languages or terms, vibing or feeling some kind of zeitgeist or gestalt, or feeling it, whatever it is for you and your form. So you need to just do it to make it happen. There's again this Aristotle kind of principle. It's only by practice do we become perfect. And then you read the likes of incredible author like Robert Greene, Mastery. There's hundreds of pages that are very brilliant. In fact, I think Robert Greene's one of, if not the greatest living non-fiction authors in the world right now. But he essentially comes back that you can't really beat doing the work. By doing the work, you have to just keep on moving forward, putting in to get out. And you have to go through the different stages. You can't always be looking forward to the starting or the middle or some kind of creation stage and be in this pre-creation or pre-production or brainstorm or planning stage. No, we have to go through the whole cycle. Only by going through that cycle we see how it is. because you might have also heard of this term in different philosophies of life itself being somewhat cyclical, but better to think of it like a spiral. But we can transcend the spiral when we work things out, and then we can get past that part in the cycle that has stopped us and moving forward. That's why also the human DNA kind of looks like a spiral. I mean, that's a good way to think of it, that we're spiraling in our progress upwards, ideally. So that's kind of why we should just start. There's this other notion, how? How do we just do it? In the words of Nike, how do we just start creating? Because I know for so many people, everybody's creative in some sense. We all have creative pursuits. We all have creative capacity. We all want to be very creative. How do we make it work? And we take whatever we can in our chosen art form, and we do it so we can move forward. Again, ideally going through the whole cycle. The silly idea, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. Okay, I'm vegan, so I'm not meaning literally, but you get the point. I'll give you some personal examples from my life. I'm a filmmaker. That's my predominant art form. I've also been much of a music artist and a photographer. Let me start with photography because it's very simple. I wanted to take great photos, and I have taken a lot of great photos. But I started by just getting a camera and taking photos, street photos. I did a street project where I shot a portrait of somebody every day for 2 years, asking them the meaning of life. And I took one photo of somebody on the street every day for 2 years. Anybody can do it, easy. After these couple of years, my photography went from this to this, much higher.
Photos, right? Photos.
Now let's talk about music artistry. I was always nervous about doing music because musicians in my mind are some of the most incredible people, so inspiring, so breathtaking, they're magical because they make something that can transform your mind and heart and soul based on the sounds that they reverberate through their consciousness and they bring to life. Well, this kept me anxious about it for so many years, especially because my own mother was and is a music teacher. Let it go, God bless her, wherever she may be. I've had this guitar since, for over 20 years, about 25 years or something, since I was maybe 10, and I'm like mid-30s now, right? So, and I was just, playing a bit all the time. And it was only in my 20s that I started doing spoken word. I'd write poems and I'd go to different events and I'd share my poems. And I practiced it over and over and over and over again. I did dozens of this. It was able to help because I got the practice and into the rhythm and into the cycle of writing the poetry music and then putting it to a kind of beat and then also performing it out in public. And it built up a confidence in me as well, because that's very important. There's two sides of it. There's the logical actualization side, and there's a mindset kind of confident or inner game side of things. Now I've recorded over 20 songs, and I couldn't be happier. It's priceless to me. So that would never happen if I didn't just practice the poems I was making, if I went and practiced the open mics, and if I kept on writing the poetry, and if I stuck at it. But I was so nervous. I was fucking, oh my god, like I can't even describe it. I could only describe it in a musical form because these feelings go beyond normal words. But I broke this incredible barrier. But I'm so happy to share because I know so many other people must feel it, because surely a lot of people want to make music, but just it stops us. I mean, we all have voices as well. We can all talk, we can all utter, we can create and manifest, and even create all kinds of sounds and meaning through our voice. That's how we all communicate with one another, and that's how we get our points across primarily with other human beings. But we can take it to higher levels by practicing, even the art of communication, which is what I'm doing right now. So I'm working on that too. But now let me tell you about filmmaking, because this is my predominant art form. It's also the most difficult as well. Most difficult art form for me. Some people say it's the most difficult art form ever. Well, there's an argument to be made for it. But I don't know about like glacier painting, or microcalligraphy, or some of these other obscure art forms, right? Anyways, I've been writing since I was a kid. Like, I was a really late speaker. I spoke like 6, but I was like just drawing and dribbling and doing all this stuff like really early, writing all kinds of stuff. And I was writing all through school instead of like listening to whatever the teachers were saying. I went and moved to Germany when I was 15, and I wrote a whole book there. The story was on this train that gets blown up, and then a couple of different people are investigating it from different perspectives, because they survive a train crash and they have to find out what happens, and there's an entanglement between them. It was very, I think I was very ahead of my time, being a 15-year-old, like, because then when I was in later years, when I was a teen and in my 20s, I saw other kind of mysteries and thrillers and suspense films. I'm like, wow, like I wrote something like that when I was 15. I mean, if only I had written something like that every year. But even to this day, I've written at least half a dozen feature film screenplays, and I've turned 2 into feature films. So that's incredible hard work for anybody that knows how to do that, because it does, in order to make a full feature film screenplay that you're happy with, and to do all the investigative pre-producing producer work, takes years, right? To organize everything in terms of location and actors, and then if the screenplay is going to translate to reality in terms of these resource elements, and then the financial elements, assuming you're going to be the writer and producer and then director too, which I was doing all these main roles. Well, it is an enormous role that you could talk for hours about. I enjoy listening to people talk for hours about it on the tube, talking about how they manifest the filmmaking process and all the different complicated elements of it. But I had to keep on writing and writing and writing, and it wasn't just writing the 6 or so feature film screenplays, but it was by doing a 50-part web series called Flat Whites, and it was also by doing dozens of short films and dozens of stories, and just all kinds of writing. Just writing, practice. And again, we're never going to be fully perfect because we're human, even if you're Steven Spielberg, even if you're Stanley Kubrick, you're David Fincher, you're Tarantino, you're Paul Thomas Anderson, you're the Safdie brothers, Coen brothers, whatever. Everybody's gonna love you or hate you, It's personal taste. And that's the beauty of art, that's the beauty of filmmaking. To put a voice out there. It's a subjective thing, but it actually inspires that energy, that fire, that either love or hate reaction, that emotionality. And that's the beauty of art, right? Because we can take it or we can leave it. We can vibe with it or we can look for something else, right? Again, I've been a completely committed artist my entire life. This is one lesson I'd like to kind of get across now that I'm coming to another kind of age of my life, getting older. Can't you hear my voice? So I'm like, what can I bring upon these youngins who are kind of beneath me in age. It's this kind of thing about if we want to keep on getting better and do what we want in life, become who we want, and we need to keep on doing. This is all of us. I'm talking to myself right now. Every single day, almost every hour, I'm engaged in one way or another in my truth and practice, which would be moving towards primarily my filmmaking goal, becoming a better filmmaker. And there are always steps to take every day, but the step you can take all the time is thinking like the kind of artist you want to be. Thinking, how am I going to make things work? How am I going to put things into practice? Then, as soon as you're ready, as soon as you conceive the next step to jump across, as soon as you can write that poem, as soon as you can start writing a screenplay, do that. And these days, we don't really have much of an excuse because it's all out there. All the information is out there. We don't have lack of information. We got information overabundance. That's kind of clear, right? It's just swarming our heads and minds like gooey chaos, suffocating us. It's possibly worse than having an underabundance of information because it's so much sometimes. It can be hard to know what is good, what is the best information for you. But you can find it if you are passionate, dedicated, have fortitude for moving forward in your chosen art form. Then believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you too. Keep on moving forward. Do what you need to do to progress and take that next step. And do it as soon as you can. Don't hold back. It's better to create imperfect, always, than to create nothing perfectly. Because nothing will be perfect. So create. Don't worry if people laugh at you. Don't worry if people are thinking funny things about your hair or your nose or the way you talk or your sense of style or, of course, your whatever you're creating, because an ad hominem attack on you, which is a reflection of them, or they will be envious of what you're creating, or what's even better, they likely may even be giving you fuel for your fire, and you may need that fuel. So you want them to give you all that energy. And I think there are some artists and people out in the spotlight that they actually get energy from all the attention, no matter if it's good or bad. You heard that saying before, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Well, that's a marketing perspective, but for some personalities, there's no such thing as bad attention, because if you're able to handle all the love and the hate, the lovers and the haters, then yeah, cool, go for it. I believe Kurt Cobain said, "Thank you for the hatred. I needed it to make my art." So again, go for it. Don't wait till it's too late, because you'll be on your deathbed and you'll be irate. So we need to take action as soon as we can. You're in charge of your life. I'm in charge of my life. But yeah, wishing you all the best for that next step in your creative expedition. Yeah.